Okay, I've genuinely had enough now. I don't think I like Sonic the Hedgehog anymore. We're going to talk about Doctor Who again next time so that I can cleanse my mind. Also, because the Beep the Meat video is now the most viewed video on this channel, I want to capitalise on that. The Beep the Meat video is now the most viewed video on this channel.
Oh. That didn't age very well. Still gonna capitalise on it anyway. Beep the Meat wasn't the only villain from Doctor Who's past to make a reappearance in its 60th anniversary specials, as just 2 weeks afterwards they were joined by the Toymaker, a character originally portrayed by the legendary actor Michael Gough, who hadn't appeared on screen since 1966. He did come close to returning to television earlier, however, and he has featured in several comics, novels and audio dramas over the years. So like I did with Beep, I'm going to be covering them and explaining who the Toymaker is, as there's a lot of conflicting information surrounding his origins, his history, and just what the hell he is exactly. For the sake of simplicity, I'm only going to be covering adventures where the Toymaker is facing off against the Doctor, as there's a few where it's just him on his own, like The Greatest Game, so spoilers for all of these stories that you can see on screen right now. In his original appearance, the Celestial Toymaker, he battles the first Doctor, who he has encountered before off screen, and decides, oh yeah, that Doctor Who guy, I'll kidnap him, bring him to my weird world of fun, and turn him invisible, that'll be a laugh. He then forces the Doctor's companions, Stephen Taylor and Dodo Chaplet, to play a variety of classic children's games against his sentient dolls and playing cards in order to win back the TARDIS, only for the games to turn out to be death traps. Fun! While that goes on, the Toymaker and the Invisible Doctor compete in a puzzle called the Trilogic Game, which when completed will cause the Toymaker's world, along with the Doctor, his friends and the TARDIS to be destroyed. The Doctor's like, nuh-uh, and mimics the Toymaker's voice to complete the puzzle from inside the TARDIS that allows him and his friends to escape just as the Toymaker's world blows up. However, the Doctor makes it clear that due to the Toymaker being immortal and capable of building himself a new world, he's still alive and will return. And he almost did in 1986, until Doctor Who got cancelled by none other than its greatest villain, Michael Grade. To make a long story short, Grade didn't like Doctor Who, so he scrapped the 23rd season that was in development at the time, until public backlash and a fucking terrible charity single forced him to bring the show back, as well as a completely new version of season 23 being developed that didn't use any of the stories or ideas originally planned for it. One such story was going to be The Nightmare Fair, which would have seen Michael Gough reprise his role as the Toymaker after 20 years, and although it went unproduced, there was a novelisation released in 1989, which was then adapted into an audio drama by Big Finish Productions in 2009, and featured David Bailey as the Toymaker. Following his previous defeat, the Toymaker has found himself in Blackpool, a fate worse than death if you ask me. He secretly takes control of the Pleasure Beach, where he begins development of an arcade game similar to Space Invaders that contains an electrical monster who kills anybody who fails at the game, with his ultimate plan being to release it all over the world. After luring the 6th Doctor and Perry to the fair, he captures them both and challenges the Doctor to beat the high score that he's set, or the game will kill him. The Doctor accepts, successfully setting a new record while also deducing the Toymaker's origin, that being that he came from another universe that suffered some kind of apocalypse and ages much slower as a result, explaining how he has lived for so long. The Toymaker is then trapped inside holograms of his own creation for all eternity, production of the arcade game is stopped, and the Doctor and Perry leave to enjoy the Pleasure Beach. Happy endings all around. Except for Doctor Who itself, as it was officially cancelled in 1989, 3 years after the intended air date of the Nightmare Fair. The story of the show continued, however, with a range of novels by Virgin Books, and Doctor Who magazine's monthly comic strip, which is where the Toymaker would make his next appearance in 1996's Endgame. In it, the 8th Doctor arrives in Stockbridge, a recurring location in the expanded Doctor Who universe, only to be ambushed by a group of living dolls. He's saved by soon-to-be companion, Izzy Sinclair, and a man called Maxwell Edison, who had been introduced in a 5th Doctor comic over a decade prior. They soon come across the Toymaker, who reveals that they are actually in a fake version of Stockbridge that he created, with the real one being somewhere nearby. The Doctor and Izzy are quickly forced into playing a variety of games in the Celestial Toy Room, in order to save the captured Maxwell and free the real Stockbridge. These range from Snakes and Ladders, Mousetrap, Hangman, and a twisted version of chess in which the Doctor must fight this weird, evil fucking doppelganger of himself created by the Toymaker. This eventually culminates in the Doctor turning his copy against his enemy, and creating a doppelganger of the Toymaker that kidnaps the real one, forcing it to play games with it for all eternity before they both disappear. This is probably my favourite story to feature the Toymaker, mainly because of the fucked up versions of board games, and the art being some of my favourite from the entire history of the magazine. It's so created and vivid, and really serves the story well. It helps that the writing is really sharp, and serves as a great introduction to Izzy as a companion. I hope the next Toymaker story after this is just as— oh, fuck off. I don't really like divided loyalties. and I don't really want to talk about it, but here we go. Remember how I said earlier that the first Doctor had encountered the Toymaker before off-screen? Well, this novel finally explores that. He and two of his friends, named Millennia and Rallon, stole a TARDIS to try and find the Guardians, a race of beings who the Doctor would later encounter in his search for the key to time. They wind up in the Toymaker's domain, who steals Rallon's body and kidnaps Millennia, leaving the younger First Doctor to run back to Gallifrey like a little bitch. The rest of the novel is centred around the Toymaker's plan to steal the Fifth Doctor's body, as he realised that Rallon's is slowly decaying, as well as turn the Doctor's companions against him for a bit of a laugh. He's defeated once again though, when Rallon manages to use all of his regenerations to force the Toymaker out of his body, which leads to his and Millennia's deaths. There's also a bunch of conflicting origins and explanations behind the Toymaker. At one point it's claimed that he's the Crystal Guardian, or a Great Old One, or an Exile. It's all done to make him mysterious, I guess, and explain why there's a bunch of different backstories. I don't know, and I don't really care. Let's just move on. The Toymaker's next encounter with the Doctor would be 10 years later, in 2009's The Magic Mousetrap, where... Okay, so you know how I've been doing those piss-poor but kind of funny visual representations for the books and audios that I've covered so far? Well, a lot of pretty weird shit happens in this one, like the Doctor, Ace, and Hex, as well as everyone else in the cast each eating a piece of a doll to try and stop the Toymaker, and that, on top of the other weird shit that happens, would take forever to visually edit together, so I'm just gonna cover the very broad strokes. Essentially, the Toymaker becomes a ventriloquist dummy, erases the memory of the Doctor and his companions, lures them and a variety of people into his domain, which he's disguised as a sanatorium for the wealthy in 1926 Switzerland, fucks with them all by playing some games for a little while, and then turns almost everyone in the sanatorium into toys before he gets defeated by one of his own victims refusing to play chess with him, resulting in an eternal stalemate. It wouldn't be long until the character showed up again though, appearing in another Big Finish audio drama a year later in 2010 called Solitaire, which is one of my favourite releases in the company's Companion Chronicles range. It follows 8th Doctor companion Charlie Pollard, who has lost all of her memories and enters what appears to be a toy shop, only for it to turn out to be the Toymaker's domain that... Wait, isn't this just the same setup as the Magic Mousetrap? Yeah, it is. Except this time, the Doctor is the living ventriloquist dummy. Okay, yeah, the similarities are there in terms of a basic overview, but when it comes to narrative progression and characters, it's quite different, and might be my favourite Big Finish story to feature the Toymaker. It's effectively an hour of him playing a bunch of mind games and just pissing Charlie off with these endless looping doors, topped off with absolutely incredible performances from both India Fisher and David Bailey. India Fisher also plays the 8th Doctor puppet, which is just hysterical. It's a fun, short story and only costs £3, so I highly recommend it. I also recommend picking up the Toymaker's next 2 appearances, which are in the anthology book Tales of Terror, and feature 2 further battles with both the 1st and 6th Doctors. There isn't too much to talk about with them, it's mostly a lot of what's been seen before, like playing a twisted version of Murder in the Dark and 2 Truths, 1 Lie, but they're fun little adventures and definitely worth the read. The Toymaker's last major appearance prior to the giggle was in the 12th Doctor comic books by Titan Comics, specifically the 16th issue where the 12th Doctor and Clara are invited to a Christmas party held by his granddaughter Susan Foreman. Would you be shocked if it turned out this wasn't a Christmas party at all? That all the companions were actually wooden dolls the entire time, and that the mansion it's held in is actually the Toymaker's toy room? Because that's absolutely the case! The Doctor and Clara jump from a variety of Christmas cards, fight Krampus, the Doctor loses his fucking mouth, and then they get attacked by the Toymaker who's flying around in a model airplane. The Doctor then discovers that he is able to affect things in the toy room, which the Toymaker reveals is due to it collapsing because of its age, and as a result, is weakening his powers. In a subsequent game of Truth or Dare, he is able to force the Doctor into giving him control of the TARDIS, which he intends to turn into a new toy room. However, he's very quickly defeated when the Doctor has Clara eject part of the TARDIS containing the Toymaker into space, leaving him to build the new toy room. That of course brings us to now, with the Toymaker's latest appearance in The Giggle, which, like the Star Beast, completely ignores every one of these stories featuring the character, except for his original TV appearance, making this whole recap effectively pointless. Once again, you could say that I've wasted your time, and to that I say... fuck you!